You are now listening to The Box Out, Tri-State area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it. Let's get it.
From NJ to BK in the world, this is The Box Out on a special Saturday night edition. Kahlil Thomas joining me as always, Jason Cordner. What's going on, Jay?
None much, but now that we on air, I gotta wish you a happy birthday once again.
Thank you. I'm blessed to see another year, and it's been a long 36 hours. So I have a beer tonight, 60-minute IPA. Some Ric Flair would drink, 60-minute man himself. I think he would drink this as well. So I'll be drinking throughout the show to celebrate my birthday. We got to get right to the breaking news that happened about an hour ago. VCU Oregon game canceled based on COVID-19 positive tests. So Oregon advances to the round of 32 without playing in one single game. Now, my question to you, Jay, and this is literally just happened before we got on air. Is this an omen of things to come going forward with this tournament?
I'm afraid so, because if you figure it only happened to the one team, they're all staying in Indianapolis. It's only a matter of time before we hear somebody from another team or a player or a coach or even a referee. So I feel like this is a bad omen to what might be happening all during the week coming up. It wouldn't surprise me if this is not the only game canceled between now and Monday.
And I feel like they put it in Indianapolis, and we talked about it, how, it's not a party city. It's not Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But you do have all these guys together. So they go outside and they break this little containment bubble that they're in. They bring it back to the hotel with other teams. There was a scene of, I think, the Drew brothers, Bryce Drew and his brother, dapping up in the hotel, like going opposite directions, but dapping up. That's probably happening all over the place in that city. So it's going to be one of those things where people are going to look at this and go, you know what? Maybe this should not be happening at all. As great it is, and we'll talk about some of the stories behind it, but this is going to get people talking like maybe this shouldn't be a thing right now.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about the Rutgers game last night where I texted you, and I was like, in my head, I was like, wow, there's a lot of fans out there in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. So unlike professional sports, how isolated are they from their college, the college friends? Mm-hmm. Who's to say somebody might have texted something and been like, hey, if you could sneak out of your room, we're at such and such. These are things I don't know how seriously the NCAA, kind of took in place.
And are they staying at the same hotels as the teams and the players? Are they in separate? And here's the thing, and we're going to talk about the NCAA and later on about the weight room situation. Obviously, they have a hard time getting their shit together.
Yep.
And I really do feel like
normally they do.
Normally, in a normal everyday circumstance, NCAA is not good. But in this case, is the enforcement good? Are they actually holding not just these kids, but coaches, trainers, student team assistants? Are they holding everybody responsible? I think not. I don't think it's like this crazy enforcement going on right now where, okay, you need to stay in your room no matter what. You can't go here. You can't go there. Are there guards walking the floors? I know it sounds like we're like in some military spot, but to a point, you want this tournament to happen. You really have to get militant about it and go, listen, we want this to finish without the casualties. And right now, you got one team out. That's your first casualty, VCU. Who knows? It could be more. You might have a lot of teams just walk into the next round.
Imagine VCU's going back home like, damn, we probably could have beat these guys.
I think I had VCU winning, actually, so I'm kind of pissed. That was one of my first mistakes I made of many this week. I do want to talk about Rutgers since we are Tri-State, and you covered Rutgers football, men's basketball, women's. What did you think about that win last night that they had over Clemson, an ACC team, right? They were a good team. I think the ACC a little down this year, but Clemson was kind of the class of the conference. And Rutgers, not a pretty game at all. It was not a pretty game to watch. But Rutgers pulled it out. What did you think?
I was shocked, and I was good. I want to say that was probably the most defiant win of, God knows, 30-something years they haven't won a tournament game. But I felt like this is the win to get the program back on the map. Whereas, they might be considered on the same playing field as a Seton Hall, where it's not just a Seton Hall as the Jersey team, where Rutgers basketball is actually here to stay. Remember we joked around a couple of years ago when we had the Big Ten at the Garden, and we was like, oh, they are really pimping Rutgers out here. But from then to now, the program's come a long way, so I'm very happy for that.
Yeah, and it's funny to watch because, I wrote numerous articles, and they mainly focus on the football squad and how I still agree. I still take the position that the football team should be nowhere near the Big Ten. But I think basketball-wise, I think they fit in basketball because the Big Ten, you have Michigan State, you have Ohio State, even though they got knocked out by Oral Roberts. Mm-hmm. You have a couple of good teams. Michigan State had a down year. Ohio State had a good year. Illinois killed it this year. Rutgers fits in that Big Ten basketball bubble, but not in football. It seems like every other sport, soccer, they're really good. Wrestling, they had a national champion, I think, last night.
Yep.
Every other sport besides football works in the Big Ten. So is that just a recruiting thing, or is that just it's just a happenstance that the only sport to not be flourishing in the Big Ten is football?
I think it's a recruiting thing, and then you just got to look at the tri-state area as a whole, where it's not really football dominant per se in terms of the college landscape. So that also has something to do with it. But like basketball, they should be right there with Seton Hall. They should be right there with St. John's in terms of like stealing talent out of the city and into Jersey. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Football, they don't belong in there, and that's going to take a long time before that changes.
Yeah, and football is where they make all the money. So that's all the conference cares about: football, not basketball, not gymnastics, not soccer, or nothing. Has someone that covered them, and I think you covered them before Steve Peichel got there.
Yep.
Or, it's night and day, I think, for someone who covered them. What's it like watching them now from when you kind of started covering them for Double G a few years ago?
It feels like the baby steps that Peichel came in and he implemented. It's just came a long way. And the addition of Ron Harper Jr., having a former NBA player's son come to the team, it kind of helped them tremendously. So it was a combination of watching the baby steps. We saw them get better last year, and they played pretty well this year, minus all the COVID distraction. But I was really shocked at the way they took it to Clemson. Can they do it against Houston? Probably not, but it's all baby steps, just like the Knicks. It's all about baby steps.
Well, it's one of those things where, they won the game, but I wrote about it last night for Jersey Sporting News, and I said Rutgers is that prototypical bubble team. They're good, but they're inconsistent. And I feel like you saw that. You saw both ends of that last night. You saw when they were on and they were just hitting shots. Joe Baker drives to the hole. Ron Harper with that dunk that I put on our Twitter feed, that was like, okay, cool. And then you saw Ron Harper go 0 for 6 from 3 in the second half. And you saw just shots. And I think Geo Baker had the ball. I think it was one possession. I think he might have had the ball 23 of the 35 seconds, 23 of the 30 seconds on the clock, of the shot clock. Just held on to it. And Brandon Hill was like, yeah, he held on to that ball way too long. And you definitely saw it. So you saw both ends of the spectrum. Against Houston, they could probably keep it close, but I really don't see them winning that game tomorrow. Now, obviously, my bracket says otherwise. I've been wrong so far the last 2 days, but I don't see them keeping up with Houston tomorrow night.
I have no faith in my bracket this year. None.
I tried. The best we can do is, and I can't find it. I think I put it away somewhere. The best I could say is I tried. I really tried. And it's really tough this year to pick an upset because a lot of the smaller conferences and the mid-majors, they really didn't play that normal schedule.
Right.
So those mid-major teams that would go play a Carolina or go play a Gonzaga, they couldn't. So for those games that would have been on ESPN or FS1, it didn't happen. So I couldn't pick a lot of upsets because I'm like, I didn't see a lot of these teams this year. I think I saw them last week during championship week, but besides that, it was tough to pick really any upsets, although we had a few already.
Yeah, I agree. But the only thing that matters now is it going to be Gonzaga or the field? And I still heavily feel like it's going to be Gonzaga, but we'll see.
I think Gonzaga wing it all. I think you said it. I think I agree with you. And I tell people, I'm like, if they don't get it this year, they're never going to win the title. This is it. This is the perfect year. It is an asterisk year. We got to put that out there. But if they don't get it done this year, it's never happening for Gonzaga. This is their best shot.
They're the 2020 Dodgers. If you don't get it done, no one's going to remember you.
So right now, there's 4 games in progress. We have Iowa up on Grand Canyon, 63-46 during the second half. At halftime, you have Maryland up on UConn by 11. You have Virginia only beating Ohio by 1. And right before the half, you have Missouri up by 1 over Oklahoma. Tonight, you have other games. You have Norfolk State versus Gonzaga, BYU, UCLA, Abilene Christian versus Texas. It's a blowout game. Only gamblers probably watch that game. And VCU, Oregon. That's no contest. That ain't happening. Oregon moves on. Is there a team so far between yesterday and today, maybe even Thursday with the first 4, that have like kind of showed you that, you know what, they might be a threat, maybe not to win the title, but to make some noise in the tournament?
For the first time, nobody did. Nobody did. I was like, all right, this wake me up when Gonzaga play, because I got to see how they handle their business tonight. After that, the only thing I was surprised probably was with Ohio State losing. I had them in my Final Four. There goes.
Okay.
So that's why I have no faith in my brackets. But no, nothing really surprised me so far. Because it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, where like we didn't see a lot of these teams play. So I'm like, I'm not sure who's good, who's not good. But it seems like there's definitely a lot of like, anyone can win it this year. Everybody's seems like, outside of conference, they have a chance.
Yeah, it's Ohio State shocked me. I didn't have them going that far, but I saw them play on Sunday against Illinois, and you definitely saw some spots where I'm like, you know what? Right. Nah, I don't see it. Really, I agree with you. There wasn't really a team that really surprised me. I think Colorado putting on Georgetown showed me like, you know what? Colorado may be good. They did play Georgetown, and we'll talk about your experience with the Big East. Georgetown really should not be here. They won the conference and they got there, but they were not one of those teams that people were like, yeah, Georgetown, look out for. Even the higher seeded teams between yesterday and today really struggled against the lower seeded teams. And that tells me that when these teams meet up and you're going to have the matchups that you predicted, it may not be really good games. Like, Villanova, West Virginia was awful. Syracuse won, but Syracuse is Syracuse. They're gonna lose by 20 tomorrow because that's what they do. They win, they lose. We know Rutgers. Houston is a threat. Purdue's out, so now that bracket opens up. North Carolina. I picked North Carolina to win. Wisconsin won. I'm like, well, hold on a second. If Wisconsin beat North Carolina, who played really well at the end of the season, is Wisconsin legit? Oklahoma State, a lot of freshmen, a lot of underclassmen in that team. How far could they go? And they struggle against Liberty. So I don't really see one dominant team. Like you said, Gonzaga's playing tonight. If Gonzaga comes out and just blows their opponent away, then we know it's Gonzaga's tournament to lose.
Yeah, pretty much. Definitely co-sign you with all of that. But do you think, and this is a good question, do you think the conference play really hurt the parity around the NCAA this year? Whereas now teams are seeing new defenses, new schemes, and they don't know how to react to it. It goes back to what you said about the lower seeds and the higher seeds. Where like, Georgetown, they pretty much benefited from seeing everybody in the Big East several times. So now coming into the tournament, they felt like they could adjust and handle their business, which they did. Now we saw what happened in the first round of the tournament. They're out of here. So I feel like that seems to be the theme throughout all the boards. So I kind of feel like if there was ever a time where a couple of mid-majors can make it to the Final Four, it's this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of, especially like the Big East played each other twice, and I think the ACC really only played each other. And those non-conference games that you play that so many people just kind of poo-poo like it didn't really matter. That's you seeing a team that you're not familiar with, a defense that you might not see. They might run a certain kind of motion offense that you're like, oh, we might see that in the tournament. Okay, just keep that. Let's have tape of that. You never. I feel like there's pros and cons of non-conference. I feel like a lot of the non-conference games are just like, all right, it's Duke versus Elon. It's like, okay, we know what this is about. Like, we get it. And a lot of times it's practice for the tournament. When you see a lot of these teams that you're unfamiliar with, you might have played a team in non-conference in early November in Acapulco that run the same offense. So it has its pros and cons, kind of like college football when they do their early season schedules. And A lot of those games when Alabama plays the Citadel, I'm like, here we go. It's a blowout. But you get Appalachian State, Michigan sometimes where Michigan looks outclassed completely. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, there's not one solid team. Like I said, if Gonzaga kills it tonight, that's your winner. That's your winner if they hold it together. But how do you like? Here's my issue with this whole CBS, True TV, TBS, TNT thing. Oh, maybe it's me, and I'm a relic. I'm 38 now. Maybe I'm just an old man now. I think I liked it better when we got one game in our market. And then if the game was really, really bad, they switched to another game. I think I can't watch 4 games at one time. I know MarchMadness.com has like the 4 boxes. I can't do that. I can't. So I'm literally turning from channel to channel. I'm missing things in every single game. I don't want the temptation. I just want one game. Just go back to having one game out at a time, and that's it.
I agree with you. I prefer the one game, but we're never going back to that because of the money. The same reason this tournament happening right now when it probably shouldn't happen is because they lost all that money last year. So what they should have done, and I'm not really sure how CBS network is, in terms of is there still in existence compared to ESPN, but they should have did something like ESPN where they had not a tracker, but all right, we're gonna flash from each game, show you
like a red zone type thing,
like a red zone type of thing. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do that. And I don't know about you, but with the cable, Truth TV's all the way over here, and TNT's over here, and CBS is at the top. It's just too much moving around, and I'm never gonna have Truth TV as one of my favorite channels. So I'm not even doing that.
Well, I know on FiOS, CBS is 502. TNT, this is really bad. I know my schedule is like this. 551 is TNT, 552 is TBS. And then True TV is 690. I'm like, what the hell? Whoa, okay, hold on. And to flick around, and I forget because True TV is 690. Okay, yeah, I never watched it. And Practical Jokers ain't on. I don't care. I don't watch it.
Exactly.
But it is kind of far apart. And I don't know. The red zone idea works. They still have CBS Sports Network. That's still a thing. They have their post-game shows on there. So why not just do a red zone there? And I just switch from game to game to game. They'll probably get better ratings than actual one of the games on True TV or something like that, I would assume. All right, so I want to move on to the Knicks for a second. And there was a rumor last week, and obviously you weren't here. Actually, before I forget, Big East Tournament. What was your experience with the Big East Tournament last week? So, that's why we weren't here last week. We didn't do a show last week.
It was cool. It was different, not being there when, everything was virtual. So it was cool hearing the press conference. So actually hearing Ewing air out about the Knicks, I was like, I had to make sure my mic was muted. I was like, oh my goodness, this is some juicy stuff. And it was definitely a different experience. I kind of like how the tournament ran. I was shocked that Georgetown ran the table because I was pretty sure it was going to be Villanova, let alone when they got to even play Creighton. I did not see that blowout coming. But it goes to, what we said earlier, they played each other so many times. They got familiar, and everything turned in their fortune. Unfortunately, I feel like they bumped somebody out of their final spot. And I felt, even though with the win, the 13th seed was probably the right place to put them.
Yeah, well, I think that seeding worked. I think Rutgers being a 10, that worked.
That worked, yeah.
I feel Georgia Tech got screwed over a little bit. Their seed, which I'm looking up right now. I know they got a really low seed, and I was really shocked. They got a 9. They lost yesterday to Loyola Chicago. That was the one I think I tweeted on the Box Out Twitter and my Twitter as well. I feel like Georgetown worked. Georgetown definitely knocked out probably Louisville or St. Louis.
Yeah.
That was definitely that they popped their bubble. Georgia Tech getting 9 was almost unfair because they got so far in the NCAA tournament, but the ACC was just a down conference this year. It was not a good conference, and I feel like they got penalized for that heavily. Of all the teams that got seeded, I feel like Georgia Tech has a legit gripe about seeding and taking on Loyola Chicago, who, listen, they made a run a couple of years ago. They could probably do it again. That's a team you don't want to see early on in the tournament at all, at any time.
Not at all. But it goes to say they didn't have faith in the ACC, and they felt like the 9 seed was a good spot for them. I disagree with you totally, with them totally, because I felt like they were a much better showing than that. But because it was a down year with North Carolina not being that great and Duke not even being irrelevant, so I get it.
And last week I covered the MAC, which was Atlantic City, which bummed me out because I'm like, I could have went to the AC for like a weekend. And Rick Pitino and the Iona Gales won, and it's a great story. Pitino, he returns back to the city and he wins the conference, and it's great. But is there a part of you when you kind of saw that success, like, this feels wrong? There's something wrong about all of this, and how he's put up again on that pedestal after the way he left Louisville. Did it feel wrong that everyone's like, oh, look at Rick Pitino, he's doing such great things in Iona? It felt bad.
It felt very, very tasteless, if it didn't feel right. But, he got another program to the tournament, so I'll give him his props for that. But we cannot forget who he really is behind,
Mm-hmm. And having assistant coaches take the hit for him, essentially.
Exactly.
And listen, I asked him a question, and I didn't bring it up. I think somebody did. And asked him, like, the way he left Louisville, how does this feel? He's like, Louisville's Louisville, this is Iona. And listen, they were a 9 seed in the MAC. They should not have been a 9 seed, but I didn't know this until I started covering the tournament. They went on a 60-day COVID leave.
Wow.
I think them and Niagara, they didn't play games from, I think, early January until the MAC tournament.
Wow.
So they were shut off, which made it somewhat impressive that they were able to win the tournament, but they weren't really a 9 seed. Monmouth didn't show up. St. Peter's and Shaheen Holloway got the semis. Asked Shaheen a question. He didn't like the question very much. So it's like, I felt bad, but it was Rick Pitino, and everybody was very happy about it. But that's the point. Knicks. The rumor is that the Knicks are looking at and kicking the tires on Andre Drummond to come in. If you were Worldwide West, if you were Leon Rose, is that a move you would make, especially with how the team is playing and how they're gelling now?
I would not make that move because it comes down to this one question. How much better is Drummond than a healthy Mitchell Robinson when he comes back? And I feel like I would ride. I think they shouldn't make any moves this season. I think they should ride it out. They won 21 games. They're one more win away from topping last year's win total and this year's projection of 22 wins. So I feel like see what they got, go into the offseason, and then work that way. I don't think you should really – because none of the teams that you're competing with is going to make a significant move. I feel it's only going to be the big boys that's going to make a move this offseason. I mean, this draft, trading deadline. But I think Drummond would kind of hurt the Knicks. He would slow it down a little bit. Whereas Randall's giving him the space. When Mitchell comes back, he's going to space it out as well. So I really wouldn't look too much into Drummond for help.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I feel like the way you're playing, and everything's clicking now. I feel like things are clicking. Guys are kind of hurt and guys are out, but you're seeing it now. And I think Michael Kay made a good point in his radio show on Friday, I think, that we always talk about, we don't care about style points. We care about wins. But I think in the case of the Knicks, you almost have to discount wins. You got to look at how they play and the style points and how they're playing. Offensively, they're a little sketchy. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of tough to depend on Julius Randle every night. But defensively, you're seeing this intensity from the Knicks that you really haven't seen since it might have been the year they got to the finals against the Spurs.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about style points because I personally was more impressed with the 2 losses than the win they had against Orlando this week. So there you go.
Well, the loss against the Nets, and with the Nets, I don't know if it was more of the Knicks played harder than the Nets did, especially late, or the Nets just took the foot off the pedal. I feel like it might be a little bit of both.
Could be a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. I think the Knicks played them happy.
Kyrie, I don't know if you heard Kyrie when he had this hot mic and he was talking to Tibbs. He was like, "Hey, your boy's playing hard." He's like, "Yeah, we tried." And Tibbs was like, "Yeah, we got a good bunch of guys out here, and this and that." So I was like, I thought that was something right there.
Well, I first of all, we got to talk about the travel that Randall had Was that a travel? I wanted to get a video of it, but I couldn't get it. I don't think we couldn't even show it because
I think he did a bad job selling it. He should have flopped like everyone else does in the league when someone hits the ball. He should have let the ball go. He must fall. Because he didn't let the ball go, that's why the ref called it.
Every other player literally someone touch the ball, they're just like this.
Exactly.
And then pick it up again. He held on to it. I was like, that was your mistake. That was your mistake. You should have dropped it. Yep. And Kyrie was selling like, what, I did it. I got it. But I think Drummond will, like you said, it will slow the offense down. Defensively, he'll just clog the middle up. Yep. I feel like with Drummond and Mitchell together, just in the middle, just big dudes just there, it'll just mess up the flow of defense. And neither of them can cover centers that can shoot. So now you have two defensive liabilities in the league that really caters to big men who can shoot. That would be a problem. I'd rather have Mitchell Robinson be the one deficiency than having two deficiencies on the court at the same time.
Absolutely.
But the other rumor is that the Nets are looking at Andre Drummond after they just picked up Blake Griffin, who has yet to play as a Net. He might play tomorrow night. They're kind of on the fence about it. Would Andre Drummond fit with the Nets?
He'll be a better fit for the Nets. I think so. I mean, he's a little bit better than DeAndre Jordan. So
a little.
Yeah. Okay. A lot better. But they definitely need bodies in there. But is that the move that the Nets should make, though? I feel like they should look for another big. Like, I'm thinking Aldridge might be a better fit for them.
I think Aldridge has to be a buyout. And I don't see San Antonio buying him out. I think San Antonio's like, no, we're going to trade you.
Oh, they're going to trade him.
Yeah.
They're going to trade him.
But then the question becomes, what do you have left to trade? We talk about this every single week. Is there anything else the Nets can trade to get LaMarcus Aldridge? I think that's the issue. Or Andre Drummond, for that matter. What's left to trade? They traded draft picks. On the roster right now, do you trade Nicholas Claxton? He's like your next best big man. Do you trade him and bring someone else in? The Nets should make another move, but I don't know who else they have to move.
Yeah, I think the Nets should look at the buyout market before they think about any moves they should make anyway.
Yeah, and the Blake Griffin move, and we weren't on the air when it happened, so we can talk about it now. I'm not sure if he's really going to help them. Do you think he has, and like he's not playing 35 minutes a game, 20, 25 minutes, probably off the bench. Is Blake Griffin, was that necessary? I guess is the better question.
I think that was a move. The Nets made that move kind of like somebody playing poker and making sure that the other team doesn't get that card. So I think that was the move the Nets did. They just got him so that the Clippers, the Lakers, Milwaukee, one of those teams wouldn't get him. Yeah,
I don't see it. I think they don't have KD and they're playing really well. And I think I asked the question, are they better off without KD? And I'm like, well, that's a dumb question because they're not. They could be a lot better with KD. But I think the roster they have when KD comes back, I feel like Blake Griffin's kind of was an unnecessary pickup. Like you said, it was just like, okay, we're going to get you just so Milwaukee don't get you.
Yeah. Because in all honesty, Jeff Green's a better player right now than Blake Griffin.
Mm-hmm. And you're taking minutes from Jeff Green. You're probably taking minutes from Claxton, who is doing crazy work right now. You should take minutes from DeAndre Jordan because, puts him down. But between Green and Claxton, I feel like you're good at power forward / center if you want to play small. Why are you going to throw somebody else in the mix that you really don't need to put in the mix?
Yeah, it's a bad move, but we'll see how they play it out.
Also, there's two LeBron stories. The first one is LeBron's out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain. He's getting hurt. He's out. He had that groin injury a couple years ago with the Lakers. Now he has a high ankle sprain. Are the miles building up now? I know last year he was healthy, and obviously last year was a really odd year. Are those miles finally starting? We had a major injury 2 years ago. Now we got the high ankle sprain. Will this hamper him? Is this the beginning of, okay, you're getting old now?
I wanted to say that because, I want to be like, he's getting up there in age. But I feel like it is a combination of a long season, then the start of a new season, and then he's carrying more of the workload with Anthony Davis being out. So it's one of those things like, if anything, this was that yellow light before you hit that solid red to slow it down, LeBron. take some time off, which you haven't really done. Usually you coast through the season. So this could be a blessing in disguise for the Lakers down the road. Let him sit down a couple of weeks and go from there.
The other thing with LeBron, and I think he said this during All-Star weekend, he was very – I'm not sure if he kind of made another statement about it, but the original statement he made about the COVID-19 vaccine got a lot of news because in the Black community, the COVID vaccine is not – I got it. Really didn't want to get it. I was kind of forced to get it because I'm like, I got to go back to work eventually. But it's something that I really didn't want. Because we, our people, we got a bad history with vaccines. We got a bad history with things from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Stephen A. Smith made a really, really big deal about this, saying that LeBron needed to come out and say, get the vaccine, y'all. Like, get it. And he was like, it's a personal family matter. Now the story comes out that 14 Atlanta Hawk players got vaccinated.
Wow.
So is this one of those things where LeBron might have messed up, where he could have been a person, and like at the end of the day, he's an athlete, and I know people, he's just an athlete, but he has some pull. LeBron has he definitely has some influence. Was this one of those times where LeBron should have been like, guys, listen, it's important. I know we don't want to get it, but we got to get it. Should he have done that? Or was he think that like, it's up to you guys, it's a personal preference? Do you?
I think he should have. I think it's because of the personal. I think it is a personal preference. So he didn't want to isolate a community of those who kind of like are on the fence about it. So I think he handled it the right way because no league, no commissioner, no from any of the major sports leagues has come out and said in a joint statement like, hey, we should all get this. Because at the end of the day, we all know what it's about. It's about getting fans back in the seats. Vince McMahon is not going to say, come on and go get this vaccine, even though Tampa's wide open and he's expecting 30,000 people at WrestleMania. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel like in this instance, you got to leave it to your local officials. And just like me, my job, they're like, hey, go get the vaccine. You get a COVID day. So it's one of those things where, like, it's all of everyone's preference. But I do think it's in everyone's best interest to get vaccinated so we could eliminate this COVID thing and get back to some kind of normalcy, because I personally would like to see a Knicks playoff game, preferably against the Nets.
I personally just want to leave my house and not see my wife for 16 hours a day. That's my dream. That's what I want to do right now. I'm okay with that. Actually, I got to tell you this quote because Iona's knocked out, obviously lost. And Patino says, quote, he's in heaven at Iona. He's done with the quote unquote big time.
Oh, wow.
I don't believe any of that.
Oh,
do you?
Absolutely not.
I'm glad we're on the same page because I don't. First of all, it's Iona. It's in New Rochelle in the MAC. Really? You went to Kentucky, to Louisville. You coached the Knicks. You were the coach and GM of the Celtics. But Iona is heaven?
That's him saying, hey, I'm open for business for the right price.
That's exactly what that is. Oh, wow. Okay. We got a comment from Joe Keating. Stripper parties that good at Iona. Apparently they are.
Probably.
apparently New Rochelle, they go buck wild up there. I don't know. Maybe I got to go up there and check that out. I'm just saying. I don't believe any of that. I think the first big job he sees, he's going. Absolutely. Which kind of brings us to Brad Stevens of the Celtics, who said he's not interested in the Indiana University job that Archie Miller got fired from. I disagree with this because I think Brad Stevens, while he's a good coach, great strategy, and it's weird. He's a really weird NBA coach where he doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's just always like this. But I'm getting to the point where he might be a better college coach than an NBA coach. Do you think that's a thing, or do you think maybe he needs some more time in the NBA to really got to gauge that?
That's a good question. I want to say he is a great coach overall, and I feel like the Boston job might have been a little over his head. He's done a great job in Boston throughout the years he's been there, but when Danny Ainge ain't giving him too much help, he should consider, like, if it's Indiana, that's a job that's dear to his heart. He should consider it. Hear them out, hear what they got to say. And I think he might be better equipped to go back on that recruiting trail. That's probably where his heart is, let alone the politics in Boston. I feel like that was a bad first NBA job for him to have such a prestige job as the coach of the Celtics. Kind of might have, left a bad taste in his mouth for the NBA as a culture. We see it all the time with like Nick Saban and all these other prestigious head coaches, and they go back to the college ranks and become successful. So I think Stevens should consider it.
Especially, you came from Butler. You took them to 2 straight Final Fours before Butler was, a Big East Butler.
Yep.
You go to Indiana in the Big Ten with the finances you got and the facilities. I feel like what you did at Butler, if you did that at Indiana, whether you win a national championship or not, you're golden.
Yep.
You don't have to be Bob Knight. You just have to be Brad Stevens. Get us to the Final Four a couple times. Win the Big Ten. I think that's the really big part. A lot of these coaches are getting fired. You don't have to win a NCAA tournament game. You don't have to win the final. You don't have to win the whole thing. Win the conference. If Indiana or Brad Stevens could win the Big Ten, I feel like he's made. He's golden.
Yep.
If he could win a couple games in NCAA, even better. But just win the Big Ten and be competitive in the Big Ten.
And he's young enough to, if he wants to come back to the NBA, that door will always be open for him.
Well, look at Patino.
Yep.
Patino with the Knicks, left the Knicks, went to Kentucky, and then came back. Wasn't successful. Went back to the NBA in Boston. Yep. So it can happen, but he called himself a masshole. I'm like, are you really? Are you just like Patino? I'm open for business. If you want me, you got to pay me for it. Mm-hmm. So, in a trade that happened this week as well, PJ Tucker goes to Milwaukee. What does PJ Tucker bring to Milwaukee, and is this a major move for the Bucks to help Giannis finally get to that next level?
It'll help them get to the second round.
That's the next level, second round.
That's it. I don't see them beating. It's not enough. It's not enough for the Nets or the 76ers. So I just think Milwaukee's in that tough situation where you're the third team in the East. That's your ceiling.
So PJ Tucker, and people are like, oh, this is going to bring them his toughness. He can shoot.
No. It's having another shooter. Great, but I have no faith in the Bucks. I've told you this many times.
You listen. I've tried to bring you in. You don't want to come in.
Nope.
I might Bray Wyatt. I might let me in, and you're like, nope, I'm straight. I'm good.
The Bucks, the Packers, the Brewers. Not my cup of tea.
So I want to go back to NCAA for a second and talk about. We talk about the NCAA and the insanity of double standards and just mismanagement and just absurdity. There was a video made by Oregon basketball player whose name I couldn't find. I can't remember her name because I saw it on TikTok. They showed what the men's workout area looked like in the NCAA tournament. And then they showed what the women's workout area looked like for the NCAA tournament. So in Indianapolis, the men pretty much had a Gold's Gym in the hotel ballroom.
Mm.
In San Antonio and in the surrounding area of Texas, the women had a little dumbbell tower that looked like it was like maybe up to 20 pounds.
Damn.
And that's it. That was their gym. Some light dumbbells. The NCAA said there's not enough space. This player actually panned the area she was in. Lots of empty space. A lot of free space for that stuff. How bad was that for the NCAA? Especially now when we're talking about equality and equal pay and just making everything equal. How bad was this look for the NCAA this week?
That was another black eye for the NCAA, whose optics are always blurred and couldn't get out their own way. So it's a terrible look. And you know what sucks? Because had this been in Indianapolis, at least the fever from the WNBA would have helped out. But there's nobody out there. There's no WNBA teams in San Antonio to help out. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel awful for the women, but I'm glad that the women are speaking up about this because that's just – imagine if they hadn't said anything, like no one would know what was going on down there.
Well, not only did they say something about it, they made it public.
Exactly.
And then you had players, you had coaches, and then you had people outside the bubble, like Steph Curry commenting on it, and Chris Paul commenting on it, LeBron James. So once it got out, and Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, didn't say anything. He sent his lieutenant out to take the hit and put out a, lack of a better term, a bullshit statement. And then all hell broke loose. Now they actually redid it. I'm looking at pictures on ESPN. They actually put in weight benches, medicine balls, and now they did it because they were shamed into it.
No pressure.
No, not at all. Just because they were like pressured into it, and they're like, listen, this is really bad PR. We got to do something different. So the day after all hell breaks loose, they're like, okay, you got ladies, you need some weight benches? You need some medicine balls? We got you now. It's just they can't stay out of their own way. They just cannot do anything right. And it seems like at some point, and I thought about this yesterday, I hate getting government into things, but there needs to be some type of a government oversight on the NCAA. Because I feel like they're just kind of running whatever they want to do, and no one's there to really check them. And it's obscene how much they get away with.
Well, money talks, and they're making all that money. So yeah,
it's just insane. And like, now everyone's like, oh yeah, they gave us what we wanted. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? It took them to be shamed into it. Like, they literally had to be like, you're wrong, right? And like, yeah, we know it's pretty bad. So I want to talk about you for a second, because you sent me a text message last week. You started talking about it. Go into detail a little bit about the Patrick Ewing situation at the Garden, because you were there for the press conferences. You obviously wrote an article for The Source about it. Give a little background on that whole situation, and then what happened to you after the
fact. So we all heard about Ewing and pretty much, Madison Square Garden, which normally I would say, which was so strange to me is they talk about, oh, no one doesn't know who Ewing is. First of all, you've been at the Garden. I've been at the Garden. Most of those security guards are well older than us.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of strange when I hear that he's getting harassed every 2 minutes for his ID. And what made it more funny about the situation is it happened after a win. So you could imagine if he had lost, what kind of stuff he would have said out of that. So we fast forward to, I guess, Saturday when they're already in the finals. I got an email from MSG PR team, and they kind of G-checked me like, hey, everything with Ewing is pretty good right now. We had a conversation, everything squared away. And when you address Mr. Dolan, address him by his full name. And I was like, wow. First of all, let alone, I didn't have no idea that Madison Square Garden PR was watching Little On Me and my little articles at The Source. I didn't expect that, but yeah, it was interesting.
Well, you said they G-checked you and I saw the email. I'm like, wow. I'm like, they really all right, who wrote about this? All right, Jason Cordner, The Source. Okay, hit him up, let him know. But listen, when we do games at the Garden, they might look at your ID, like your badge, your credential, really quick and kind of keep it moving. I'm not 7 feet 290. Also, even with a mask on, you know who Patrick Ewing is. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what he looks like. Who was the guy that hey man, I need to see your credential? And I'm like, what? Who would do that? And I'm trying to think in my head and like, oh, they're just trying to do their job. And I'm like, I get that, and people are doing their job, and they do good work at the Garden. I never shit on them. They're good people.
Right. But
who's that dude or that woman who is checking Patrick Ewing like that and don't know who to? First of all, you're 7 feet tall. You're probably part of what's going on in the court somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just some dude walking around Madison Square Garden 7 feet tall. Secondly, was there no one else next to this person say, hey, listen, nah, that's Big Pat. Like, no, we don't do that. I just found the whole thing funny, but also found it sad that this legend can't walk around his arena when he wants to. I just found what is happening there?
Yeah, I'm curious to know who's the security, But like I said, most of the guys there are older than us, so I'm very curious to know who did stop him and kept asking for his credential. And like
There's
you said,
guys that's been.
we go there all the time, and they probably look at it like once or twice. And if it's color coordinated, they let you rock.
Well, my thing is like, there's security guards that have probably been there since the Knicks last won the title, most likely. They're like 20 and they're still there. There's not a lot of new guys.
Nope.
So there had to be something behind it. To me, that's where my mind goes. My mind goes, that makes no sense to me. Like, what is there more to the story? Because there's no young security guards at the Garden. All those people they're vets. So I don't know. And I know, of course, Oakley chimed in because Charles Oakley can't help himself. But maybe it's something else there. Maybe I'm just digging for conspiracy.
I don't know, but then I got that email. I was like, wow, they really G-checked me. They're really looking at what people are saying about them and are quick to jump on. Like, who does that?
I had to bring that up because I showed my wife. My wife was like, did they really go at Jason like that? I'm like, they did. Like, they went at Jason heavy. I'm like, wow. I want to talk about the Ball family for a second because there's two major things I want to talk about. One's LaMelo, and I am buying LaMelo Ball stock right now. He shoots really well. His court vision is insane. Passes really well. And I feel like he's not, and my biggest fear with him was like, he's going to be a jock. He's going to get the ball, bring it up court, and just bomb. He's actually that really good in between of pass first and shoot first.
Sure, yep.
Where if he has it, he's going to take it. But if he doesn't see it, he's like, okay, I'm looking for the perfect pass every time. I'm really buying stock on him right now. What are your thoughts about LaMelo Ball?
Definitely should be front runner for a Rookie of the Year. The best draft pick Jordan ever made. The Hornets in general, they're playing very well, and I feel like he fits into that mold with him. Even Rozier is benefiting off of playing alongside Ball. So if you would have told me in the beginning of the season who is the best Ball brother, I would have probably went Alonzo, but clearly that's not the case right now. And it's going to be good to see him play in the playoffs this year, even if it's a play-in game. It's going to be good to see him get that experience, and he'll do something that Zion and John Moran didn't do last year. He's going to get his team into the playoffs and at least have a play-in game, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you kind of go back and look at Jordan's track record. And we're going back to Washington with Kwame Brown and some of the trades on draft night, and then Adam Morrison. And he just couldn't get it right. And I feel like he got it right now. And it was still some did he really is that the right pick? And it's working out perfectly for him. And
perfectly. People
are excited about Charlotte for the first time, I think, since they were announced as an expansion team, that they're like, hey, we're getting the Bobcats. That was the last time anybody had any excitement about the Charlotte franchise, and that you're starting to see this might be a team that if Jordan doesn't mess it up, and that's the key here, this is a team that we could talk about for the next 5-6 years. And I was listening to an interview on the Ryan Russillo podcast, and he was talking to Tim Legler, and how Tim Legler talked about his Washington Bullets team, where it was him, it was Chris Webber,
yep,
Ben Wallace before Ben Wallace was Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace. There was someone else, George Marison, and I think it was a really good guard they had. And he's like, in Jordan, they played the Bulls in the first round playoffs. They got swept, but Jordan said that's the next team to look out for. Like, the Bullets are that squad. And then in the offseason, they traded Weber and Rasheed Wallace for Rod Strickland. And I'm like, whoa, that's what I'm afraid of. That right there, when I heard that, I was like, that's Jordan. Because Jordan wake up one day, we got a lot of guards. Maybe I could trade LaMelo, and maybe I could pick up Bismack Biyombo. Not Bismack Biyombo. I'm trying to think of another really crappy center. I'm trying to think of a really bad one. Give me a bad center. Who's a really, really bad center in the league right now?
Damn.
Because I think Biyombo's bottom of the barrel right now.
DeAndre Jordan?
There you go, DeAndre Jordan. that would be even worse because like LaMelo would go to Brooklyn to play with Kyrie and learn from Kyrie, and Kyrie like his contract's up. Brooklyn's like, we don't need you anymore. We got LaMelo. And DeAndre Jordan goes to Charlotte and is like the centerpiece of the Charlotte Hornet franchise.
Lob City all over again.
And that would be like that Jordan messed that up. The other bald part of this is, and I hate this man. LeVar Ball was on an interview, and he said that he wants his son Lonzo out of New Orleans, and saying that they're not playing him correctly. Once again, here's where the Knicks come in. Leon Rose reportedly is kicking the tires on bringing in Lonzo Ball next season on a contract that could be $15 to $18 million. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm 50-50 on it only because I feel like Lonzo does need a change of scenery, and I think he would work in New York. He will finally have a coach that will want to push him. He's not really getting that. He didn't get that. He didn't have that in LA, and he don't have that in New Orleans right now. So I kind of see it. I'm still holding on to my stock with Lonzo because I think there's still something there.
14 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. I'm in my head thinking of a lineup of Alonzo Ball, Quickly, Barrett, Randall, Mitch. I don't hate it. It's what you would have to pay to get him was my biggest problem.
But how many teams out there are really going to want Lonzo right now, especially in the East? Because you don't
not
want
a lot actually.
You don't want to be in a bidding war by yourself.
I'm looking now. Atlanta, no. Boston?
I'm going to say no. Well, they don't pay anybody.
Yeah. Brooklyn, no. Charlotte? Will they put Lonzo at LaMelo?
I don't think Jordan wants those headaches.
Chicago?
I don't know. Cleveland, no.
Cleveland, that's Cleveland's next. Detroit, Detroit can take us at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in all intents and purposes, Detroit probably going to get the number 1 pick in the draft. So there you go.
Yeah. Indiana, no.
They need not a point guard.
Miami.
It depends on what they do. I feel like they could be in the Lowry sweepstakes with them in Philly.
Milwaukee.
They don't have the money to pay them.
Orlando.
Orlando needs a lot of help, so you might be competing with Orlando if they have the cap space.
Philadelphia.
I think their point guard situation gets addressed at the trade deadline.
Toronto.
I don't know if LeVar wants that.
And Washington.
Washington, I don't think Beal wants that.
I just the lineup, that starting 5 doesn't. It excites me a little bit because I'm like, you have a pass first point guard in that offense, which you don't really have right now, and I think you need that. Quickly should be playing off the ball. Quickly's at a point.
Right.
I feel like you need someone to distribute the ball out to quickly get the ball to Randall. Randall's gonna bring the ball up occasionally as well. $18 million freaks me out that you're paying $18 million for Lonzo Ball when you haven't seen $18 million worth of play from him in his career so far. That's my only issue. If he lessens that number a little bit, then I have a conversation. But I think $18 million is crazy for Lonzo Ball right now.
Yeah, if he lessens it a little bit. But if not, what other point guards out there on the open market you want?
There's not a lot of point guards that are pass first to begin with.
Exactly.
I feel like the pass first point guard is like, I think Chris Paul might be the one, even though he shoots his fair share, but he does think pass first mainly. I don't think there's a lot of pass first point guards out here right now. It's not like John Stockton or anything like that, or even Magic. Magic was pass first. I feel like Magic Johnson was more pass first than anything.
Yep.
So, last few minutes, I want to talk about wrestling. Did you see the barbed wire explosion match or the aftermath?
The little sparkles afterwards. That was a beautiful thing. And I love, you know what? Kudos to AEW for making a joke out of it on the next night, the next Wednesday on Dynamite, because that was the best way to handle that situation. WWE would have it was supposed to go off, and that's that.
I compared it to the sparkles you get during bottle service at a club.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's essentially what that was. That's all it was. And I felt bad because I was like, and Tony Khan's like, there's only so much I can do without literally blowing people up. But in that case, I'm like, okay, cool. I understand that. Then don't do the match then. If that's your idea, I can't do everything I want to do because I don't want to really hurt these guys, then don't just don't do it. Do a cage match with barbed wire on top or something like that. I think the match was good. It was a really good match. Mm-hmm. But then the ending, everybody remembers the ending. No one remembers how good the match was. I think that's the problem right now.
Yeah. They're getting it. It's going to come around slowly.
But the women's match they had this past Wednesday.
That was gruesome, but that was great.
Phenomenal. Like that might have been, take out the explosion for a second. I would put that up there with that Moxley Omega match for how good it really was. It was amazing.
It definitely was, and I feel like the women's division over there is stepping up a little bit because it was atrocious a year ago.
Well, I said it on Twitter, I'm like, this is the actual introduction of the women's division of the company.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like they needed something to get people like, okay, this is what it is now. I felt like the last year, and like Hikaru Rashida's a really good champion, but Riho, Nyla Rose still looks like Tamina to me. It's like she hasn't gotten any better. I feel like you need to kind of, and you really can't have them face each other again because that was the end. That was the end. But you have to build around them, especially Britt Baker. Britt Baker must have been watching Adam Cole match with her boyfriend because she's gotten better in the last 6 months. It's crazy. And I have been watching NXT, but I did catch the end because they have an overrun after AEW. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about Karrion Kross?
Hot take. He reminds me of a 2021 version of Goldberg with a smoking hot manager. Pretty much it. He doesn't have. He doesn't move the needle to me. He's like a combination Goldberg with Batista height, no charisma. But
I'm not feeling it. I'm trying. I'm not getting it.
One of my friends asked me a good question about that because it seems like at NXT. First of all, why is TakeOver 2 days? I don't know why. The WWE is trying to kill us with WrestleMania Overload that week, where we're gonna have 2 NXT shows, SmackDown, Raw, 2 Mania days, and then we run it back the following week. That's too much.
And the Hall of Fame in between that.
In between that. But somebody asked me, it's like, if Cross wins the NXT title, does this mean Finn goes back to the main roster? Like, how does that work? I hope not. How does that work after you got demoted back to, because none of the guys that went back down went back up yet. And it seems like Finn might be the first one, but I feel like he wouldn't fit on the main roster. I feel like some guys, at some point, NXT should be somewhere where it should be considered a third brand and people go up and down as they please.
Well, the idea that they're developmental is bullshit at this point in time. Yeah. It's not. It's his own brand now. Developmental is like what they're doing with, like, they have like another NXT show, which is like the Evolve show. That's developmental. Right. This is an actual brand now. So I feel like if Finn Balor leaves and goes back to the main, his career's done there. It's over. Look at Andrade asked for his release. Like, Andrade was crazy good at NXT, went there, started banging Charlotte. Now he ain't doing nothing. It's like, now what? So
we don't see Keith Lee no more.
Yeah, I don't think he made a statement, but I don't know what to say. I didn't read it, but I don't know what his deal is. But apparently he's going to big man camp. I don't know. So I don't get it. And Peacock stinks. I looked at what they have. They don't have any of the features the network has. There's nothing almost there. Like, nothing came over. I'm like, so what am I paying $10 for now? I can't even skip through matches. I got to like actually literally fast forward through every single match to get to the match I want to see. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
But at least you get to see The Office on the same stream as the WWE Network.
That sounds great. That's awesome. Jay, as always, great show, brother.
Likewise. Enjoy the birthday.
I will. I'll be going to my basement, my man cave, and hitting up some Jack because I need it after the last 36 hours I've had. Thank you for listening to the Box Out. The podcast version of the show will be up probably tomorrow night on Spotify and iTunes. We will be back on our normal day and time this coming Thursday, 8 p.m., talking about the aftermath of the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament and hoping that the Knicks don't make any stupid moves between now and then. So
the trade deadline's Thursday too, right?
It is.
Nice.
We got a show. We got a show on Thursday. For Jason Corda, I'm Kahlil Thomas. Thank you for listening on this Saturday night. We will see you on Thursday, 8 p.m. here on the Just Hoop Talk YouTube channel. Peace.
Peace.